Not guilty, not guilty, 10
Charles
times.
Manson, described today by the star witness
Jury
again.
in the so-called Night Stalker case reached its verdict today.
Orenthal James Simpson not guilty of the crime of
The woman
murder.
suspected of shooting Selena is still holding police at
Music
bay.
producer Phil Spector was convicted
In
Monday.
Los Angeles, a killer the police are calling the Hillside Strangler.
Do you find that Mr. Depp has proven all the elements of defamation? Answer, yes.
Welcome back to LA Legal, where we'll be talking about Blac Chyna versus the Kardashians. Angela Renee White, famously known as Blac Chyna, is one of America's socialites. From entrepreneurship, starting her line of cosmetics, I'd like a fact checker on that, I've never heard of her cosmetic line, to modeling and stripping at Miami's most luxurious nightclub, the King of Diamonds Strip Club.
I've heard of the stripping, though.
Yeah, the stripping I've heard of. Yeah. So that's no fact checking on that, guys. To being featured in the hottest hip hop music videos in the early 2000s with Drake, Nicki Minaj, Tyga, and of course Kanye West. Blac Chyna has done it all to work her way up into the spotlight. Funny that she's done a video with Kanye West too and Tyga. This family is like insanely intertwined. Yeah. So Chyna's romantic track record with infamous celebrities has been exposed to be unstable and problematic. Before her most recent relationship with the one and only heir of the Kardashian clan, Rob Kardashian, she was romantically involved with hip-hop star Tyga. She was featured in his music video, Rack City, which aired in 2012. It's been rumored that he performed this song at Kendall Jenner's Sweet 16, which is where he met Kylie, yes. And that's how their relationship blossomed.
Yes.
Okay. And so after that, shortly thereafter, she starts dating Rob Kardashian. Okay.
And she has a kid with Tyga.
And she has a kid with Tyga.
She has a kid with Tyga. She ends up having a kid with Rob.
Right. And so now they're like cross uncles and daddies to the kids.
Yes, stepdads.
It's very on brand with the Kardashians. Okay. So let's talk about this, right? So she sues the Kardashians, almost all of them except for Kendall, for defamation and for interference with her reality show and reality career, Chyna and Rob. What were your thoughts on that when you heard of it?
Yeah, I mean, first, right, she weasels her way into the most successful, at least entertainment family in the United States. So, I mean, setting aside how you feel about the Kardashians, they're insanely successful, all of them, except maybe poor Rob, who suffered a lot.
I think that's why she bamboozled him into dating her somehow.
Yeah, I think bamboozled is right. Yeah. And then she abuses him, like physically abuses him. And like we don't want to make light of it. I mean, he's a victim of domestic violence, but like you're talking about a billionaire family and this seemingly crazy woman finds her way into your life. You got a kid with her. She beats you up. She points a gun to your head. And then to add insult to injury, she sues you and your family for defamation. Yeah.
I mean, look, you have a kid with this guy. You're stuck with them for at least 18 years. Maybe just, be quiet.
Yeah.
But you sue them publicly. I think what's interesting is this actually was happening almost at the same time as the Amber Heard Johnny Depp case. So I think this would have maybe gotten more publicity if the two hadn't been happening at the same time.
Yeah, we talked about it in another of our podcasts, Selena, right? Huge case, but right after the People versus OJ. And you kind of think, yeah, if the Kardashians are sued and Kim and, the rest of them, Khloe, Kylie, Kris, they're all testifying. They're actually in court every day here in LA. Blac Chyna's there. But the case got really much, much less publicity than it otherwise would have because, of course, the trial of the 21st century was happening. Right. Depp v. Heard.
Right. And I also think it's because a lot of people just don't like the Kardashians. And so I thought it would have just been far more televised and talked about because people would like to see them fail. But it looks like,
Yeah, but I don't think a lot of people like Amber Heard. And people, even if you don't like the Kardashians, you would like to watch them. And this is drama. It's, it's baby mama drama. There's violence. You're talking about sex. There's all this kind of crossover with Kanye and Tyga.
Do you watch the Kardashians?
I do not.
You do not?
I do not. I gotta confess, I do not.
Can we replace him?
Yeah.
No. Okay.
I'm not qualified.
No, the Kardashians are great to watch. I mean, admittedly, I watch quality television, so I followed them from first season, and there's something about their show that just is so gravitating.
Well, clearly, I mean, they're insanely successful. They have spinoff after spinoff. Each of the family members, again, setting aside poor Rob, is immensely successful, whether it's products, whether it's modeling. Again, if you judge success based on money and sales and fame, they really knocked it out of the park.
100%. So with that said, let's talk about the Rob Chyna show, which apparently you know nothing about. But I watched the first season, and I have to tell you, as a viewer and someone who has followed reality TV and the Kardashians, it was very hard to watch because there was really no there's really no chemistry between the two, in my opinion, of course. And I think the best parts of the season were just when the Kardashian sisters are there, right? Because you have these lavish parties and whatnot.
Sure.
So their show was just mediocre at best. And so this entire thing kind of stems from the cancellation of the show, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's what the case is about, right?
So,
obviously, it's not renewed. China's saying that it was canceled because of the Kardashians. But look, I don't have to watch reality TV to know that Rob is not the star of Keeping Up with the Kardashians. So is that the one that you want to do a spinoff around? Look, maybe China. Because look, we know reality TV wants characters, and they want crazy characters, right? And whatever issues Rob is dealing with, I don't think he's the star that's going to make that show pop.
I would actually argue that he got his own show because of China, not because of himself, right? Because she has that like crazy factor. She's somewhat entertaining, I suppose. And she's interesting, right? Because who is this girl? She's the socialite, and all of a sudden she's marrying into the most powerful family. And so I think, I think that's where this whole thing happened, right? Is that she's somewhat doing well on the show. Rob really is not pulling any of his weight, and then it gets canceled. So let's talk about defamation. Tell our viewers and listeners what defamation is, and then let's talk a little bit about the trial.
Yeah, so defamation obviously is a false statement. When you're a public figure, it has to be malicious. And the important part of defamation is not just the liability part, but the damages, right? So obviously, good, different case, but the reason Depp v. Heard was so big, he said, listen, I was canceled. Johnny Depp didn't get Pirate 6 because of what Amber Heard said. And what China was saying was, my show got canceled. This was a big source of revenue for me because of the statements the Kardashians were making. Kris, Khloe, Kim, Kylie, all of them.
All of them. Yeah, Kourtney. I think every single one, including Kris Jenner's boyfriend, long-term, Corey, and then E! Network was dragged into this. So let's talk about it. There's a fight that happens at Kylie Jenner's house between Rob and Chyna, where she allegedly strangles him with a cell phone cord. I mean, what?
Yeah, so I think this is really kind of the basis, right? This fight happens, and as a result, the Kardashians are like, she cray.
Yeah.
And, they're saying things internally. They're saying things on social media. And, NBC Universal, which owns E!, they basically decide not to renew the show. And that's sort of one of the big issues in the case. Was it canceled? Was it not renewed? Because they were filming material for season 2.
Right.
And that was something that, obviously, the Kardashians tried to get the case dismissed. Obviously, they got good lawyers. They got lots of money. They're saying, listen, this was something that there's really no damages here, right? First of all, it's not defamatory, but really their main argument was this was a decision that was made by the networks independent of us. Blac Chyna, you got no damages, you have no case. The judge disagreed, sent the case to a jury, but that was one of the big issues.
And so what came out at trial were some of these emails and text messages between, I think everyone except for Kim, but Khloe, Kylie, and Kris had sent emails back and forth to E! And Ryan Seacrest saying, I actually have a quote. Hang on.
Yeah, I got mine as well. And ultimately, the Kim part's important because she was originally named as a defendant, and then as the evidence came out, maybe she's the smartest one. She didn't make any defamatory statements.
It's that law school education.
Yeah, Kim, great job. But she was dismissed from the case as a defendant.
So this is a direct text from Khloe Kardashian. She says, "We're even considering not moving forward with our show if theirs continues. That's how strongly we feel that this is damaging our family." Okay.
Yeah. So this is an important part. So are you talking about the Khloe?
The Khloe statement.
Okay. So the Khloe statement. Let's just talk about hers because that was probably one of the most important parts. Yeah,
because this is almost blatantly saying, it's us or them.
Yeah, and the question was, were they leveraging their own insanely popular show, saying, "Listen, if you continue with Chyna's show, we're out."
Right. Well, let me ask you this. This is, I guess, more of a business decision, right? And you run a very big, successful business. If the Rob and Chyna show was in fact successful, I mean, threat or no threat, I don't think the network would have let it go. I think the reality is that it was tanking. It was not interesting. I don't think they had a lot of viewership. And so when you have arguably the most popular show in the most powerful family threatening to walk away, you may be influenced. That's a decision that I think you consider.
You may, and it was interesting. So obviously, Kris Jenner, when she testified, she tried to downplay. She's like, listen, I don't control the network.
Yeah.
This is something that they decided. I don't have weight like that there. And obviously, Ryan Seacrest and other folks testified that, the decision was made independent of what was going on with the Kardashians. Interestingly, again, different case, but very similar. When the Disney folks testified in the Johnny Depp case, they said, we made the decision not to renew. It had nothing to do with what Amber Heard wrote. So
Right. I don't know. I guess we'll never really know, but I do see how there could be a significant pull. I mean, you have Kris Jenner threatening to walk, and she's taking all 6 of her girls with. And think about how many spinoffs they have. I think that it played a role, but ultimately, the fact that the Rob and Chyna show wasn't doing very well is also a big factor, in my opinion. So another factor that I think was interesting here is that Rob and Chyna had actually broken up. Right. And so she is gung-ho about pursuing this show and that season 2 was greenlit, but they had broken up. How do you have a Rob and Chyna show?
That was the defense. Like, there's no Rob and Chyna show without Rob and Chyna. So
you're right.
Yeah, they're not going to continue because they're not together, and you need kind of 2 to tango.
Exactly.
For a show like this.
So I think that was another factor that played into the defense, right, is because the 2 are no longer together. And then most importantly, the cash grab. Okay, so let's talk about that. She, there's all sorts of reports that, she's financially ruined, right? Tyga's not paying her child support and Rob isn't, or, so she claims. So her cars were repoed. And so what a brilliant idea than to go after the Kardashians for like $300 million.
Well, yeah, they're the deep pocket, right? They got a lot of money. You're kind of banking on the jurors not liking them. But defamation cases aren't easy. Again, the Johnny Depp case aside, we've talked about it. He was an amazing witness, but Blac Chyna is no Johnny Depp, and her damages just are in no way anywhere near what he suffered.
Right. And so let me ask you this, because Chyna's mom, Tokyo Tony.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, she went crazy on social media too. Yeah, I got her. I'm looking at all the quotes, by the way. That's why I got my phone.
So, this is a casual podcast. Remember, we're allowed cell phones this time.
There you go. Open book.
The one day we're allowed to wear casual clothes, and you messed it up for us, Nima. So Tokyo Tony, her role in this, right? Because she went crazy on social media. She's talking about their looks and everything, and she's just trashing this family. How do you think that comes into play, right? Because the jury is made up of people like you and I, right? They're seeing these things before trial, before they're even sentenced.
Yeah, let's talk about Tokyo Tony's statements. I got them right here, right? She's saying that she went on a rant. She said that, Khloe's taking Xanax. Kris is old and decrepit. They all look scary. It was so bad that the judge actually barred her from the courtroom.
Right.
So, I mean, look, we got to open trials in this country. And if you can't go in a courtroom, you've really done something wrong.
Exactly. So, so what were your thoughts overall about this trial, right? So trial happens, 10 hours of deliberation. Mid-deliberation, you mentioned Kim Kardashian's case gets thrown out, right? So how does that tie into what the jury's thinking, right?
Yeah, I mean, kind of big picture, you got everyone testifying. Ultimately, I think the 2 most important people were Rob and Chyna. And Chyna was just a bad witness, She admitted to pointing a gun at Rob. She said it wasn't loaded, but said it was a joke.
She says it was a silly joke.
Yeah, I don't think that was something that was believable or credible, and probably pissed off the jurors, And Rob, I think, came across, pretty credible. He was very vulnerable. He talked about how it was the lowest point in his life, about his mental health issues. I mean, look, if someone's like beating you up and pointing a gun to your head and that's your baby mama, I mean, that's a big problem.
Another thing to credibility is that I think we can agree most of the Kardashians are not liked by a lot of people.
Sure.
But I feel like people like Rob. People sympathize with him, right?
Yeah, a lot of
because
people
he's
do.
kind of like this outcast, you know, he's not this like mega jillionaire like all the rest of his sisters are, right? So I think people like him, and his vulnerability, the few times he shows up on the show, is really something that I think people relate to, you know?
I think he's definitely the most sort of normal and most ordinary of all. He's not like super out there socially. He's not real glam.
Yeah, he keeps
he's
a
just
low
like
profile.
surrounded by, you know, this
You know
family and
what's
his sisters.
interesting is their new, not a new their new show that is now on Hulu. Okay, same thing, but just on a different network now. He was present at a few of the family events, but it was people on social media that pointed him out. So they don't even show him. So I'm assuming he said, you know, I'll be present at the family parties, but don't film me. So he's not even like, he's not on the show. He kind of keeping a low profile, working on himself. So I think that's what is something that people relate to and they like. And so when he testified, right, and he's talking about being abused by this visibly crazy woman.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about some of his testimony. Really sort of powerful. So I want to make sure I get it right. I mean, in addition to court, I mean, look, he took the stands, and I'm just going to go through some of the highlights. You know, he talked about his vulnerability, you know, and he basically said his family members warned him about her, but he ignored it because he was in such a weak place in his life, his weakest, his lowest point. You know, he wasn't thinking. And he really talks about the interaction. She was playful, but then he's like, listen, you know, when she's pointing the gun at your head, you know, that's just not a joke. And then that she beat him so much, she left like bruises all over his body. And there's witnesses to see that, not just like his sisters. But again, I think it's not an independent witness per se because it's Chris's boyfriend. But I think when you got someone that like is a third party, and we're talking about Corey testifying to the same, that's really powerful. And really, who does Chyna have except her own self-serving testimony that really...
It was a joke.
It was a joke. I don't think most people would consider it a joke.
Another thing, too, and again, we obviously don't know how much the jury knows about the family, but on their show, season 1, there's been several instances where she just flies off the handle. I mean, I'm even surprised that E aired some of it because she goes from 0 to 100 in a matter of seconds.
Oh, yeah.
And so you almost sense this, like, unstable, maybe, like, physically violent sort of like deep-rooted sort of thing that is like itching to come out. So the fact that she beat him, I wasn't surprised because of what I've seen.
Exactly. You know, not only did she at least allegedly beat him according to the victims, she's basically, there's evidence that she's just using him because he's part of the family. And the statements like she says allegedly, would I like this fat fucker if he wasn't part of the family, right? Yeah. There's allegations that obviously Kylie's saying that Blac Chyna sending her threatening text because of her relationship with Tyga. There's allegations that Blac Chyna was physically abusive towards Tyga when she was with him, that she threatened to kill Kylie. So all in all, this is not a very likable plaintiff. She has the burden. And I think when she testified, that was really kind of the nail in her coffin.
Yeah, I agree with you. Okay. Well, this is all for today. I think this was a very short trial. Again, it was a closed trial, so we don't have a lot of the transcripts. It's just kind of things that we're hearing from the media. But sadly, this got trumped by the Amber Heard and Johnny Depp trials. So maybe we'll see the Kardashians again in court.
We'll see. I know there was a subsequent case that ultimately Blac Chyna decided to walk away from after she lost this defamation case as well. So
I mean, wouldn't you? For every one lawyer, the Kardashians probably have like 10.
Yeah.
I mean,
so I think she learned her lesson and she kind of walked away, and now she's got to pay, I think, a few $100,000 in costs, probably because the Kardashians served a 998 offer as well. So they're the prevailing party. So
they're
to add
petty.
insult to injury, she lost her show, and she's got to pay hundreds of thousands of cost, allegedly, or probably. So we'll see.
If only Amber Heard would go away.
Yeah.
Take note from Blac Chyna.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining us. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time here at LA Legal.
Thanks, everyone.